You guys, when you go to the Midway or the fair and they have the Ferris wheel and the roller coaster, none of us get on those rides and think we've got a steering wheel. We're pretty sure that we just have to let go, let God, and hope the hell the thing goes all right. That's eclipses. That is exactly how eclipses work. And we're coming into a very new energy, a completely new cycle of energetic, destined fated change in which we really don't have a whole lot of control. And that wave of change is part of our code of our soul to experience certain stories in our life. And so what happens in next year's story, 2026, also throughout 2027 into 2028, we move into a wave of destined change, a fated river of shift in the Aquarius and Leo part of our whole sign sky. Each of us has Leo and Aquarius in one zone of our heavens. For me, it's self and other, marriage and me, particularly, me and anyone else. It's the I, thou axis as an Aquarius rising. Other people, it may be about your career. It might be about your children. It might be the axis of your financial matters, the 2-8 axes. So for each sign, we have a different area of fated and destined change that's about to begin to take place in our sky that we haven't seen for a long time. In fact, the last time this wave of change happened in our heavens was 2008. 2009. And if you want to go back even further, it's 1989 to 1991. And you want to go back even further, and you're already way back in 1970 to 1972. And if you time travel even further back, this wave of change happened in 1951 to 53. That's the North Node, South Node axis in the same position. South Node in Leo and the North Node in Aquarius. Alrighty. And so we begin those eclipses for the first time since 2008-9 in our lives. And it's going to begin to show up for us with the very first eclipse on February 17th, 2000. January 17th, 2000, February 17th, 2026 at 17 degrees of the sign of Aquarius, the water bearer. And we'll have a summer total solar eclipse in August in the sign of Leo. So I'm going to show you a little chart to take a screenshot so you have a kind of a handy tool to compare notes. That would be, something I think is useful as a teaching astrologer, and just put a little graphic together for you. And then we're going to go ahead and delineate your sign. I will be doing a world astrology video on this separately in my new format, What in the World Wednesdays. From now on, I'm going to try my best to keep the world astrology and the personal astrology slightly separate. So I'm not stopping the world astrology videos. I'm putting them in another section. Also, just be aware that there are new guidelines on YouTube that they just put out, and it's super intense energy. They put like 4 more categories you have to check off about whether or not this is suitable to put on YouTube for monetization. And one of them is like, is this a sensitive topic? They're really making it hard to speak freely at this platform at this time. So just be aware of that. Now, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Lori Lothian. I'm using the Western Tropical Zodiac, whole sign houses, all that gear of the traditional Hellenistic astrology as well. My goal is to help you time your best life. At the risk at sounding ad nauseum, check my join button, come aboard, do some live streams with me in my members only community here. Plus you get teaching content and other things that are more scandalous that I can't talk about here. Or maybe you might want to also join any of my communities. Everything is about me below. And I still have my 2025 All Signs Bundle and individual signs for sale. Those are 2.5-hour videos about your sign for you to guide you through the year ahead. Information is in the description box. Now let's go ahead, like and subscribe. Let's go ahead and start talking. Let's talk. One thing before I show you this chart, I'm going to show this to you, and I think about the eclipses coming up this summer, just as a general vibe without diving deeply into world astrology. We all know that 2008-9 was a financial crisis in the banking industry. It's not that I see a pattern with that through the other Leo cycles, the Leo Aquarius cycles in the eclipses. I just want you to be aware of that. But we may see some similar stories happening just because of some turbulence that is now occurring through to about the first week of February, connected to the stock markets and Uranus going over Algol on the star of the New York Stock Exchange, the sun of the New York Stock Exchange. So there's a little bit of that going on probably in the first half of this year, just so you know, 2026. So that's something to think about. But otherwise, I haven't seen a trend that this cycle normally leads to that. In fact, 1989 as we moved into that cycle into 1990 was all that glasnost, the falling of the Berlin Wall, the real recalibration of the relationship between Russia and the rest of the world, USSR at the time. So there may be some major geopolitical changes in the stance of how nations interact with each other as friends or foes, for example, because kings are Leo. Leo is a sign of kings. We don't have kings anymore, do we? We don't have kings anymore. What we have instead is we have elected bodies and elected parliaments and elected legislating bodies. And we also have elected presidents and prime ministers. In our day and age, it seems like we're moving into a bit of like a kind of tyranny and despotism that we see in times where Uranus does move through Taurus, where we saw the rise of fascism with Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini, and that thing that we see happening with some of the world leaders looking like dictators and stuff like that, control, power, authority, unilateral executive branches with overreach, that kind of thing. That's the end of the Taurus cycle of Uranus. So Uranus started going through Taurus in 2018, and from 2018 until this April 27, that would be the rise of the dictatorial factors. We're going to see, funny enough, a decline, mainly because of Pluto out of balance. But I don't want to do too much world astrology. I want to talk about your sign. The only thing I'm going to say about the world astrology as a heads up, there is a total solar eclipse in Leo in the last decan of Leo this summer in August. And of course, President Donald Trump has his ascendant at 29 degrees of Leo. And this will actually be also closer to Mars in Leo for him, which makes this a very difficult an eclipse in August, and it can impact his ability to remain in power, or perhaps his health. We're always talking about that. The guy seems to be eternally resilient, but I'm just saying solar eclipses tend to take out kings. That's the principle of a solar eclipse, right? And that's a total solar eclipse in Leo on the sign of kings, in the sign of kings. So there's just a thing. So we'll see some world leaders falling from power, particularly those aligned with the Leo energy. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you this chart, and I want you to, just a little fun little graphic I made for you guys. I want you to take a screenshot. That way you have like a tool that will be handy, right? And you can use it to remind yourself of stuff that's important to do with eclipse cycles, okay? So let's get it up. Share. There we go. This is what I'm trying to share with you. I just made it for you guys, and hopefully that's useful before I talk about your sign. And I'm putting this video out soon. Like, I'm recording it on a Sunday. It's going to come out on a Thursday, January 1st. Happy New Year's. I think that's when I'm putting it out. But anyway, in 2026, 2027, and into 2028, that's the top right, you're going to see that we have these eclipses coming through our sky in Aquarius, Leo, Aquarius, Leo, Aquarius, Leo. And we have, as we go through these eclipse energies here, the obvious indication that I've highlighted in yellow where the eclipses are solar eclipses, okay? Solar eclipses are a different beast than a lunar, and they tend to affect world events and world leaders more than lunar eclipses, which tend to have a more impact on the people, particularly. Solar eclipse at 29 Aquarius could indicate February 17th, an impingement in the power of a world leader who would be connected to Aquarian themes, like China is an Aquarius rising country. There's some Russia Aquarian stories as well for the nation of Russia, although there's multiple Russian charts. And then we might also look to leaders with strong Aquarius placements in their natal sky to look for leadership eclipses where the leader, the king, is eclipsed coming off of that. And then we have February 6th of 2027, 18 Aquarius, another solar eclipse. And by the way, January 26, 2028, a trailing eclipse at 6 degrees of Aquarius. So this is going to impact nations connected to the Aquarius archetype, as well as leaders and people who are profoundly Aquarian sun moon kind of things, maybe risings. I'll be doing a world astrology report on that. More important is what I want you to notice on the right-hand side bottom, 1951 to 1953, 1970 to 73, not 1970 to 73. That's a typo. And 1989 to 1991 and 2008 to 2009. Okay, that's the last time the cycle of eclipses moved through Aquarius and Leo. So I want you to remember those dates to compare to your own life, to make some kind of suggestive comparison. We've gone through weird periods of time, just so you know, like 1951 to 53. We had a solar eclipse, one solar eclipse only in Aquarius. So solamente uno, and that's it. That was February of 1953 at 25 Aquarius. That's the only solar eclipse in Aquarius back then. And if we go all the way back to 1970 to 72, unbelievably, or 73, it's unbelievable, but we did not in that window of time have a single solar eclipse in Aquarius. In fact, all of the eclipses that were solar were in Leo at that time. So it's like we skipped a beat back then. And that'll be something I'll dive into in the World Astrology section to make some notes and to compare. All right. And I told you about the total solar eclipse. It's August 12, 2026 at 20 Leo, 9 degrees away from the ascendant of Donald Trump. If you want in the comments, round up some famous Leonine people like me, include celebrities who might go through an eclipsing energy. I would love to hear what you come up with. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do your sign. Now, I kind of joke to my clients when they complain about eclipse cycles, a river of destined change, right? That was Adam Ellenbusk describing it to me in 2018 when I studied with him. He sees it like a wave or a river of change, like kind of like moving through the sky on an eye that on a 180-degree axis, and how that river of change is like a fated or destined type of energy. And I think we have like latitude in life. We have creative latitude, co-creative latitude. We have some degree of agency. But it reminds me of that Jesus Take the Wheel by Carrie Underwood. There is no steering wheel here because the nodes are showing where fated things or destined things occur. Yet at the same time, at some level, our soul, I suppose, has made a decision to experience these kinds of moments in time every 18 months. We will go through another energy field, like we'll move the eclipses into another zone of reality. They've been going ever since authentically, integrally, the egg yolk of eclipses, moving through the signs of Virgo and Pisces really began in January of 2025 and closes out in July of 2026. But there's eclipses on the borders of that. So there was an eclipse in Pisces in September of 2024. And there will be an eclipse trailing out the other end of this summer and stuff like that. So we keep seeing that there's an egg yolk and then there's an egg white. The yolk is when the node of fate is in the sign where the eclipse is happening. When the North Node, for instance, is sitting in the sign of Aquarius and there's an eclipse in Aquarius. That's not what's happening in February. And rather instead, it's like my brain went offline. Yes, February 17th. Rather instead, that eclipse, which we'll be diving into much depth, is going to happen in Aquarius at 28 degrees of Aquarius. Well, the node of fate is next door, in North Node of fate is next door in Pisces. That's going to bring two different houses into one story, right? It's not a solo Aquarian energy, right? So there's that. Today's video isn't about that eclipse or the Leo eclipse or any of the other eclipses we're going to have this year. We still have trailing Virgo Pisces eclipses. This is instead about the wave of change and what it means for your sign, where you can expect that change to happen and compare it to 51 to 53, 1970 to 73, 1989 to 91. 2008 to 2009. You want to go back and think of your life in those time frames. Let's go ahead and let's start with Aries. And if you like this kind of content, if you haven't subscribed or liked, would you do so? I'd appreciate it so very much. And let's go ahead and start with the Aries folk. And we start with Aries. Okay. And we're going to talk about the vibe shift. What's changing in your life as you're going to hit an eclipse wave moving through a cycle in Aquarius and in Leo, the Aries sun, moon, and rising you haven't seen for quite a while, 2008-9. Go back and watch the intro. You know, it's kind of interesting because you're listening for sun, moon, and rising. Sun is your soul, your essential self, your core self. It is the game player in the simulation, where the rising is the mask, the character, the avatar. But both of those are very circumstantially sensitive, especially the rising sign. But also, you can listen for your moon sign, how you feel and think about life, everybody, but also things to do with home and nest and mother. And certainly I will warn you that eclipses that are going to connect directly to any of your sun and moon placements, if that happens to you, eclipses on your sun and moon, it can also be hardship in the life of a son, father, moon, mother figure in your life. But we're not today talking about that. We're going through the story of your Leo and your Leo romance, love, house, and your 11th house of your career gains and profits and pennies from heaven and windfalls. Now, one thing I want to say about eclipses through 11.5, the axis is one of the most auspicious, powerful, positive, and good fortune energies available in the heavens. That's because the fifth house of good fortune can bring good fortune, including winning money through speculation and gambling. And the 11th house can bring what feels like a windfall into our lives. So one thing I want to say, that it can be a cycle, perhaps just as a general principle for Aries, where you have seen evidence for windfalls coming into your reality in certain periods of your life financially, or what feels like financial fortune or good luck, just as a possible thread. For example, this last happened in 2008, 2009, and I came into a financial windfall at that time as an Aries sun and moon. So you might consider yourself able to go back in time and see some fortunate circumstances connected to that. It's also a fertility axis because the fifth house is the house of children, pregnancy, and conception. Yes, in 1989, I gave birth to my firstborn child. It was the 1989 to 91 cycle. And that shows exactly what we saw then. So I'm talking about me to give you an example, to go back and compare to themes of love, romance, children, financial good fortune, windfalls, and also matters to do with your own creativity, artistic nature, entrepreneurial zeitgeist. Fifth house matters, leaning also into an expansion energy every time of your 11th house. Now, let me talk about the difference between a north node eclipse and a south node eclipse. Right now, the nodes have yet to enter into, you see that, into the next space. That's why I talked about it in the beginning. See, the nodes are separate from the eclipse. It'll happen at 28 degrees here with the moon. And what this indicates is that we're in a really weird hybrid eclipse cycle. That is that we're going to feel the energies in the beginning going through both the 11th and the fifth house, while also bleeding through to the 12th and the 6th. So I'd say that until the nodes swap over in July to the right places in the sky, you're going to feel like this eclipse is kind of a weird bleeding energy coming up. We'll be doing a whole video on that. You haven't fully entered into this juicy 11th house, fifth house story. And it's going to say the same for everyone. I'm not going to delineate the eclipse in February because I'll be doing a big deep dive video with the asteroids and the stars involved. But just know you don't really feel in the full swing of the cycle until July. Okay. So then in July, August, as we move into the Leo eclipse, then you're going to get, oh yeah, now I get it. I feel the cycle. And it's going to be playing out till a trailing eclipse in 2028 in February. So one thing I mentioned is love affairs. Why, right? This is your house of love. Right now, without the node here yet, it's not likely until after July you're going to meet fated, destined love partners, except that maybe that February eclipse could bring in an office romance. All said and done, though, I want you to go back and think about your life in the past again. You know, if you're old enough, 1970 to 73, 89 to 91, 2008 to 2009, did you fall in love? Did you meet destined and fated love partners? I bet you did. I met the guy I married. Okay. One of the guys I married in 2008. And so go back in time. Did you have babies? Were grandchildren born to you? That's another delineation. Did you find your financial money was going well and you faded in destined ways? With the energy of the expansion that's headed into your 11th house, once the North Node enters there, a lot of you are going to expand your social influence, your groups of friendships, the social circles that you inhabit are going to grow and become larger and more intense and maybe more destined and fated groups of social belonging. And another kind of vibe with the North Node is to increase your gains in your career, but in a fated and destined way. So you'd have more prosperity or money from the career path that you've chosen, your 10th house. The 11th is the second from the 10th. It's the gains of your career. And the North Node volumes up and amplifies the gains, but also brings change with the eclipses in the way in which you make the money that you're earning. So while you might increase or volume up the money and earnings influence, even celebrity, even fame of the 11th house, kind of getting well known, having influence over large groups of people, you also are making changes at the same time. So it may not be connected to things you were doing before this time, before now. Right? In the last 2 or 3 years, it might be something new or something different. And with Pluto up there in the 11th house, something, the elephant in the room, that's going to bring you into contact with social groups of belonging that are wealthy or powerful people. And that's something that you might expect the North Node to increase, that wealthy, powerful people become a part of your social groups. But it also can indicate that you could also be more rich, very much more so, in the thing you do in your career that brings you the career gains, a whole new level of riches. With Pluto here, it hasn't happened before. It's not like you can compare that in any shape or way to the eclipse cycles before. Pluto is the brand new element in this part of the sky. We'll be diving into that in our video all about that particular storyline. We're going to move on now. So I hope you're excited, fellow Aries. This could be really great. I'm looking forward to this new energy moving through these positive 5-11 houses. I have good memories of it, to say the least. And if you're too old to birth children, sort of energy down here of any kind can translate as children having children. So you might be coming into grandparenthood, especially with Jupiter in the 4th house, which is more children in the home, more children in the household, more children in the family unit. So there is a sense that some of us could be coming into parenting or grandparenting as Aries people. So now we shall move us forward and talk about Tauruses. Hi, Taurus, sun, moon, and rising. Well, this is exciting because here we have a very major axis of the chart called 4 and 10. That's going to indicate a huge amount of change in home, property, land, and real estate, where you live, but also your career objectives, your goals in your career, your reputation, etc. And even the 10th house can be the house of weddings. And so there's going to be a lot of action on this axis here over the next couple of years as these eclipses begin to dig in throughout 2026, 27 into early 2028. Now, you can compare to home and reputation and career and weddings and down here, family of origin and mother-father relationship stuff on this axis and destined waves of change with no steering wheel. You can make a comparison if you were alive, 1970 to 73 or 51 to 53, 1970 to 73, 1989 to 1991, and 2008 to 2009. Did you have any major changes in this axis of the chart? And if you did, you might see similar changes occurring yet again. If I think about the 2008 for my Taurus daughter, 2009, we sold the family home. Her dad and I sold the family home because we were separating and divorcing, and she moved into a new home. So there's a sense of a little girl, Taurus, has this major home change. You see what I'm saying? So you can look at your sky and say, did you change homes is a big one. Now, one of the things about this cycle is the South Node, when it moves through, July of this year onward, your 4th house, that's definitely going to be South Node, release, surrender, and let go of a home. For the South Node, it's not just voluming it down. It's about what we have to excrete or let go of. So some of you are definitely looking at some major changes in where you live or your home life, right? Maybe selling a home or moving or renting a home or changing a home, whatever home changes are going to come. Yet at the very same time, it's worth noticing that the node of fate has yet to really enter here, right, till midsummer. So right now there might be the beginning of a phase of thinking about changing your home in relationship to love, children, and romance, right? Those are the 3 things it could be pondering as the node gets ready to move here. And then also in your 10th house, there's going to be a volume up north node in July, not quite here, but it's in the gains house. So it can indicate maybe you're going to have professional success one way or the other, even off the February eclipse. It could look like more money, right? The node is going to be pretty close to Venus, exalted income from your career. And all said and done, though, with this eclipse, it will be coming, it can join Mars, a major change as well. Well, it looks like some of you are going to change jobs, whether it's within the company you work for, or you're going to break away from the whole field of work. That is all possible as well. It's interesting that Mars rules your 7th house of your marriage partner. So there may be major changes in the life of a marriage partner if you're married coming off of this as well in their professional direction, not just yours. All said and done, expect pivotal changes because these eclipses are angular to you. And that means that all of the fixed signs are going to have major life changes. And those are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. I probably should have started with that. And you guys are under a huge amount of change, just like the mutable signs were and still are a little bit. So they've gone through the eclipse cycle before you, the one just before you. So there's that, 2025, 26. And with Pluto for the first time in a lifetime in your 10th house, you could become quite wealthy or powerful in your career over the next until 2044. And each time we have eclipses here every 18 years, it's going to really amplify that possibility for you. So this is a very important eclipse cycle. We'll talk about that in the February eclipse. It's more important than you imagine. And you may find that your passion for your work, to be successful in your work, dominates your private life, and you begin to lean away from home alone, time with your partner or family in the home. And a lot of this energy is going to propel you over the next couple of years to be quite career driven, moving away from your children, moving away from your partners, moving away from your roommates, or less time with them because you're on this like top of the sky. You want to succeed in your career and you want to show up as successful. You're driving for that and the gains of your career as opposed to domestic concerns. They'll take a back seat. Gemini, sun, moon, and rising sign. Here we have a cycle of energy that you experienced of eclipses moving through your 3rd and 9th house. Now, your 3rd house and 9th house axis is a very interesting one. It's often connected to travel and education, writing, communicating, social media, publishing, and podcasting, legal and court matters. And when I talk education, it can be higher level academics at campuses and colleges, all the way to shorter skills-based learnings in colleges or even at weekend workshops. That's the 3rd, 9th axis. So you may notice that this cycle could bring you into the desire for education or extensive travel, domestic or abroad, or writing, communicating, teaching, marketing, selling, podcasting. Some of you might definitely want to go off to higher education. We'll talk about why in a sec. As I talked about those 9th house, 3rd house themes, I want you to also go through past times of 1951 to 53, 1970 to 73, 1989 to 1991, and 2008 to 2009 to compare notes. Now, this is my cycle, right? I've been through this cycle too, only on the last one, 2008-9, because I had a progressed sun in Gemini at that time still. And I can say something along the lines of how 2008-9 felt on my progressed sun's metacosmos 3rd house, 9th house axis. It involved an enormous amount of international travel. There's definitely that story, okay? And I did not go back to school or educate myself in that cycle. So there is none of that. It was more about an amazingly intense cycle of travel. And so if you want to go back to that time frame, you might think about it too in your own life. Did you do a lot of travel? It can be domestic or international for the 3rd and the 9th house axis is activated. And also maybe an energetic focus on siblings more than anything else. Your 3rd house are siblings, okay? And you might also focus more on one younger than you or also on the sibling 2 older than you. And that focus of 1 younger and 2 older and sibling relationships might have dominated during those prior years in a destined, fated, change way. Unfortunately, when the South Node moves through the 3rd house, it can indicate challenges in the health of a sibling. And it can also indicate wanting to move away or change your neighborhood and move to a different city or a zone in the city. So neighborhood or local environment changes can occur. So for me, as an example, in 2008-9, I did move. Okay. So I did make a locational geographic change in the city in which I live. So you might notice as well that you might get more involved in spirituality and wanting to like dive into synchronicity, oracles, scryers, diviners, spiritual ideology, spiritual paths. All of those things can be coming your way courtesy of a destined, fated eclipse cycle. Well, the North Node wants to volume up when it moves here in July, and the South Node volume down. That's the neighborhood change I'm showing you here. I don't think the neighborhood change will be necessarily available to you until the South Node gets into this part of your sky in July. But also the North Node up here can really intensify your desire to go to foreign places. And I mean, really intensify it, because the North Node Rahu is the one that is like the foreigner energy. And when he gets in there in July and we keep moving through the cycle through till the end of 27, a lot of travel might be indicated for those of you who have a desire to travel abroad. And some of you may even be propelled to go back to school and learn. This is the first time we've had the North Node with Pluto in the ninth house. So there's an intensity there. This could amplify success and worldly success in publishing, podcasting, book publishing in particular. So that's another story I can see here for you. And possibly destined fated changes in the ninth house with Pluto could lead to very powerful riches from court and legal cases that favor outcomes for you. If you're going to court over anything, you might come out on top. And I think that's what I have for you for now. Don't forget, this is the overview, not the deep dive into the eclipse on February 17th, as we're really going to cover some asteroids and stars involved, and multiple other factors I don't want to cover in an overview video. But just get ready for that third house, ninth house wave of change. And I trust it for you and me because Gemini's Pluto is in a trine to you. It's a powerful dharmic energy of being aligned with your purpose. And if I could say one simple thing, finding the means to which powerfully transform your life by being aligned with spiritual ideology, faith, God, goddess, and purpose. And these eclipses can really open up doors for that as well. And so this new cycle through 3/9 will travel through your sky through until the spring of 2028. Get ready, set. Cancer, sun, moon, and rising sign. I think I need to get comfy, guys. I'm going to buy myself some kind of orthopedic chair. This one I have is it's comfortable, but not really comfortable. You know, it's more like sofa comfortable. So I guess I'm going to get one of those fancy chairs. I'm going to bite the bullet and buy one. Here we have it, Cancer, sun. I talk about Cancer who like to nest and be at home and when I'm trying to get comfortable. Cancer, sun, moon, and rising sign. The last time you had eclipses moving through this this Leo and Aquarius axes of the sky. I want you to compare notes. This is a money axis for most people, right? This is the earnings, spending, pocketbook, wallet, resources, eighth houses, inheritances, spousal money, shared resources, in-law money, investment money, banking money, loyalty, mortgage monies, royalty income, ad income. Could you share that with other people, like with Google AdSense or whatever, with a book publisher? This kind of money, the axis of money is activated. Now, if you want to go back to see as a Cancer, how your financial access worked out for you guys who are a little older, 1951 to 53, 1970 to 1973, 1989 to 1991, and 2008 to 2009. Okay. So it should have involved some destined fated changes in financial circumstances. Some of you also could have made extraordinary dietary changes. Why? Because it ultimately becomes a south node change cycle through your second house, which ultimately leads you to making radical changes like veganism or keto or some kind of dietary change of habit. And so maybe you can look back and think about the dates I've outlined. There's a graphic to take a photo of in the beginning of the video. Go back and grab it for those dates. Also, with the South Node still in your third house of siblings, there may be a lot of focus on siblings and money issues and money and siblings right all the way through, or friends in the neighborhood right through to July. But ultimately, the South Node will enter into the second house and the North Node will enter into the eighth house. And then it's really purely a money story. The eclipses are moving also in a part of the sky that opens up the doors of occult mystery, paranormal, supernatural, tarot, numerology, astrology, amplitude, North Node up. You might be really excited, maybe some of you, to learn more about astrology or tarot or numerology and do it for professional reasons because Saturn will be moving through for 3 years, your 10th house. So it could, and he owns the Aquarian occult mysteries, right? So you could really be propelled to want to study something to do with the woo-woo world in order to use that in a professional capacity. And there may be an increase of a possibility of an inheritance during this cycle. Not every time does a North Node transit with eclipses through the eighth house bring inheritances, but quite often it does. And so you may experience the possibility, Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising, of coming into a bit of money here. And your partner's money can also increase, right? And that can include divorce settlements for you, or just that your partner's money is increasing one way or the other, allowing for more money in the family unit if you're married. And And finally, I'd say that anything to do with banks and mortgages and financing, whether you want to sell a house, buy a house, refinance property, because it trines the fourth house, is going to be very activating for you. This is a moksha energy, the eighth house, asking for spiritual deep dive, deep dive into the egoic structures of your mind, your psychological landscape, and maybe some profound identity of the ego shift and healing that could come through this cycle of eclipses as well. And with Jupiter in your sign amplifying but protecting you, I mean, he'll amplify anything. You know, if you get a head cold, it'll become a flu, but he also helps you find a solution for it. So you have a lot of energetic protection here from Jupiter as the February eclipse is occurring. So because I just brought that up because people are afraid of the eighth house of death. It's very rare eclipses in your death house are killing you, okay? But often they can lead to death in your life. Somebody you know may pass away. I'm just saying we all have elderly family members. We have to take account for that. I'd be lying if I didn't, because Mars will be with the eclipse with Pluto. So this has the idea that some of you might go through this eclipse from February at a year. It's a solar eclipse. It has a year rollout. And you might experience the loss of somebody in your life. That's just a possibility. I'll be doing more of that on the actual eclipse video. Now, Leo, sun, moon, and rising. Fated, destined energy changes are happening here for you through the axis of self and other. See, I'm an Aquarius rising. I've got the same thing. You've got it too. It's I, thou, I, thou, I, thou. So sometimes it means changes in long-term committed love relationships. And the kinds of changes you experience are fated and destined. If you're single, you might meet somebody. North Node can bring a very intense, destined, fated, new long-term marriage type partner into your life, committed love relationship. And it could be with someone from a foreign land, even given where Saturn will be traveling. But at the very same time, the South Node going through your sign is you're asking yourself to release, surrender, and let go of something in your life. It could be a job, it could be a home, it could be a marriage partnership, because your identity will hinge on it. Leo sun's eclipse cycle can have you change careers. Leo moons, it can have you change your home. And Leo rising, anything about your character in the simulation, including shaving off your beard or mane or whatever Leos have on their head and head and face. So that's kind of eclipse cycle for a Leo person, say Donald Trump, right? Leo is going to have major, he's an ascendant, let go of a kind of identity. I am the president. You see what I mean? And so you'll say, I am married. I'm working. I'm this, I'm retired, whatever I am, you put to your character in the simulation, Leo rising, you're likely to be looking at destined changes as you release one old identity in order to form a new identity. With this energy in the seventh house, it also impacts your partner in marriage. If you're already with a long-term committed spousal type relationship, whether it's legal or just cohabitational, the North Node is amplifying and intensifying the connection, that person's reality, because they're with you and they're getting collateral North Node intensity. Now, it could bring them some worldly success, but it can also bring them just a whole destined change energy, even if it's not their chart. So with Pluto there, North Node, Pluto, Mars, I would also say that I'd caution your partner, whoever that is, right? Leos, be careful here, especially that February eclipse. That could be an injury or an accident or something really intense going on in their world. So you want to be very proactive around that for them and with them and make sure that they're being more cautious. But all said and done, if you are single and looking for a relationship, the North Node can bring you a very fated one. If you're married and the North Node transit and eclipses start moving through your seventh house until 2028, it wants to expand the relationship's terms of service, wants the root-bound marriage plant to have a bigger pot to grow in, okay? So you want to try to expand the relationship so it will pass the test of this intense cycle of change. You will ask, did I tell you when you went last through this? 1951 to 53, 1970 to 73, 1989 to 1991, and 2008 to 2009, when the I-thou axis of change from your perspective was underway. If you are somebody who works with an audience and marketplace, like you have a public, okay? The 10th house from the 10th house, right? If you were counting around the houses, 1, 2, 3, it means it's your public for your work. It's your audience for your work. It's the marketplace of the public. So you might find that you're increasing your worldly success through the marketplace of your public, if that's the kind of work that you do in the world, and meeting fated, destined, wealthy, powerful people, Pluto, in the next 18 months. And Pluto brings a flavor that we didn't see in any of the other cycles of eclipses through Leo or Aquarius. Say Virgos, Virgo Sun, Moon, and Virgo Rising sign. Don't forget to like and subscribe, please, guys. Thank you. If you are looking at this axis of 12 and 6, get ready for this to feel destined and karmic already. Forget about the energy of the eclipses themselves, right? Because we look at the 6th house as a destined, fated karmic debt relationship. And we also look at the 12th house as connected to past lives. And so suddenly the axis of this super metacosmos between the world's houses of 6 and 12 is activated. Now, because you also concern yourself with the other themes of the 6th house, where the North Node will travel, we would say an increase or volume up regarding the themes of debts, pets, rental properties, health, and work. And by work, I mean employment or employer-employee relationships, job, office space, all of that. This is an area that's under a huge amount of change. And it may involve an increase, therefore, more animals in the house, more pets in the house, maybe an increase of debt, but also destined changes in your life regarding indebtedness when you owe debt. With Saturn in the 8th house, debt repayment plans may occur, refinancings, maybe inheritances from an elder, money coming to you that helps you change debt structures in your life. Having the 6th house energy of the North Node, if you're looking for a pet, will bring a fated, destined pet to you, okay? And with Saturn in the 8th house, it's a reincarnation of a former pet. Just trust me on that. So if you wanted to get a pet and you missed your old pet who passed, and this would be like, I'm going to have a pet, and you might see signs that this is the same animal who has returned to you. This does happen. My outro will be about the returning of my dog, okay, just for you Virgos. Reincarnation of animals. The other thing I want you to contemplate is, how can you be rich in your work? Because that's what Pluto will try to give you. You don't just want to get a job and you're making money and you're slaving away and you hope the tip jar is decent at the end of the day. This is another story. This is where the North Node volumes up your worldly success in a house that you would assign to be work and service, right? Work and purpose, like service. Sometimes it's servitude. Sometimes you're in a service job. It doesn't have to be. It's just the workhouse. And you might even notice that with Pluto here, you might be finding wealth is a new part of your narrative around making money. Taking care of your health, because this is a house of sickness, becomes a theme for you. This is Aquarius, right? So it involves Aquarian health themes. And the part of the chart that Aquarius is in medical astrology is your calves, your ankles, your shins, and your Achilles heel. Okay, Achilles heel, shin, ankles, and calves, and care of your health here. North Node will volume up your intensity around that, but I don't know if I like the energy of the first eclipse with Mars injuring your ankle, injuring your calf. So be careful for that possibility close to February 17th. I'll cover that in that video coming out in early February for that eclipse in particular. You might also notice here that if you are somebody who is wanting to culminate or complete or end, eclipse out a relationship, it has to be a karmic relationship. Like, I can no longer be with this friend or this person because our karmic debts are complete. You don't really get the full Monty of this energy till July. So I'm talking pets, and you're like, well, wait until after July. We need the node of fate to be in the 6th house, and then the idea of pets will make sense. Right now, we're having a complicated hybrid eclipse cycle, and we'll cover that in the video for this particular first eclipse in February. Finally, if you are finally relieved, maybe you're taking a deep breath to get the South Node out of your sign. You've been dealing with South Node transit through your sign, oh my goodness, since 2025. And you've been trying to let go and surrender and release some kind of identity structure that hasn't been working for you. And all eclipses involve the sun, so it could have been addiction, self-undoing, and bad habits and patterns. But all Virgos are still working with that energy to some extent through till July, and even more with the last eclipse in the fall through to the end of the year. But it bleeds over with a new cycle. But this way, and you might have even had some weird health challenges, whatever this has been about, They started in September energetically in September of 24, thickened up in January of 25, and is thinning out by July of this year. So then you're not really in the thick of it anymore. But you have been going through this story. Holy man, right? That cycle is coming to a close. And that could have really pressed you on health, body, identity, and significant love relationships or serving audience clients. I have a Virgo girlfriend who's, basically pulling away from doing a lot of her client work as an agent in real estate, for example. And that's like the South Node's a change of identity. She wants, retiring, right? Nothing bigger than a change of identity than when you retire. All right. So let's move on to the next sign. I wish you the very best, you guys, you Virgos. And Libra, sun, moon, and rising. It's funny. Every time I get to Libra, I think I'm only halfway through the zodiac. Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. You're going to have a new wave of energy coming through the sky. And you saw this in 1951, 51 to 53. Okay. I need water. Sorry, guys, I'm back. All right, let's talk. Libra. So the new eclipse cycle is moving through a part of your chart that you would recognize as fertility, romance, sexuality, good fortune, creative entrepreneurial stuff, fifth house, and even winning money, right? And why not? And the South Node is moving up here. North Node will be moving here in your 11th house, which is really great for your career in one way, but bad in another. Because when the South Node moves through the 11th house, sometimes we need to let go or surrender or release something we would consider the gains of our career. And I know you're doing well because you've had Jupiter up here since last summer through to this July coming up. And that indicates prosperity and abundance and expansion of career success for the most part. But yet, when the South Node begins to enter into this part of your sky, you're going to find yourself wanting to pull back from the intensity of the rewards and the earnings and the gains of your career. And sometimes that means you're going to pull back and tone down a little bit. Maybe you're overdoing it. Maybe it's time to take a little break. Also, this cycle has led in the past, maybe, and I'll give you the dates again, 1951 to 53, 1970 to 73, 1989 to 1991, and 2008 to 2009. This has led to a sort of like a pulling the plug in the career gains. Some of you just might have seen that as a change of job, a change of path, or a change of career in those time frames I've given you. You also can lose friends here. Now, you can lose them in multiple ways. South Node transits through the 11th house can mean friends are going to leave you. They're going to die. Sorry, life happens. Or you're going to move away from them, or they're going to move away from you. Sometimes it's just a geographical, or circumstances bring you into less time with those people. Like, for example, you've got the fifth house of children with the North Node pushing through there. So I have a Libra girlfriend who had a child back in the day, right? In the 89 to 91 cycle, of course she's going to spend less time with her friends. She's busy with a baby. So there's stuff like that. Okay. But for whatever reason, it definitely opens up fertility for conception of children if that's something that's something you're considering doing. And with Uranus moving through your ninth house coming up in end of April, that amplifies the potential for unexpected pregnancy or unexpected entry points of grandchildren as well into your life that nobody was really planning for. The North Node will want to increase your joy, your fun, your enthusiasm, your inspiration, and your pleasure. But this is also the good spirit house. So yes, you can increase your artistic and entrepreneurial stuff. Start a new entrepreneurial business if you want. But this is also the fifth house, the deeper vibe of, good fortune. And sometimes we win money through speculation here. And so it is one of those types of eclipse cycles that could increase your financial fortune through lucky money wins. The cycle is going to be most deeply egg yolk and not egg white in the thick of it, starting in July through to the end of 2027. We want that node of fate to join in here for the eclipses. It will begin happening in August with the solar eclipse up here. So there's more time for that to happen. Okay. I'm one of those people who got that weird flu cold thing a while back, maybe 3 weeks ago. Sorry, guys. Not fun. But, Libra, I'm sorry. I had to go get some tea and so that weird flu cold, I had friends who coughed for 2 months afterwards. I got hardly anything. I felt just bad for 3 days, but there's this weird continuing thing with a tickle. I don't know if anyone else has had it. If you've had it, let me know. So it's not good when I'm talking a lot. All right. So sorry, Libra. Anyway, I think you could be conceiving a child if you want, but you could also have some luck in your money. I want you to wait. Of course, the thick of the luck comes in better for you in July through to the end of next year. And you might notice that this is going to be redolent or reminiscent of the other dates I gave you in the beginning on the intro of the video. And I think I also reiterated here in the beginning of this video, but 89, 91, 2008, 2009. All right, let's continue on, shall we? Please don't complain because I'm doing my best. Now, Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising sign. It is the sky that's opening up a new eclipse cycle, and it's one that's going to take you into a place to do with your career and your home. And it might end up meaning an expansion of your home, a change of your home, and an increase in your home. And with the North Node going to volume up the fourth house, destined changes in home. This can also mean increases in the home. So maybe more people living with you or a bigger home. Rahu can make it larger. North Node can make it from a foreign place, but there's home changes, all right? At the same time, the North Node will be moving through your fourth house. Starting, as I said, the North Node gets there in July, but the eclipse cycle begins in February. At the same time this is going on down here, you're having a South Node dropping the bucket and dumping the career space out. Now, most people find a South Node transit through the 10th house lends them to change their career or job. That you want to release or surrender, let go, because you're having a decrease of success. You're having a decrease of something here. It can also be fated destined change in your career. That's, keep it simple, right? And it's probably not surprising. You probably will feel it coming already. You've been dealing with the South Node through the career gains house and feeling burnt out maybe. And what's, all that money, and is it juice worth the squeeze, chasing the paper, feeling drained about the work you do? Maybe something's going on already. You might already feel it, right? In some way. But, the North Node through the fourth house has another meaning. It can bring legacy wealth. Increase of worldly success through money from your mom and dad, or that's your family of origin, or your people up your family line. And it's possible that this, with Saturn in the sixth house of sickness, you never know, it could indicate the beginning of a possible story that in 2026, 7 into early 28, you might be coming into some inheritance. And with Uranus going into your inheritance house in July, this time around, that's definitely true. And with Pluto down there, we're talking about some significant money or wealth coming from the family line to you off the solar eclipse. With a solar eclipse, it means a solar figure. Mars and Pluto are sudden, and there can be the indication of an end of a father figure in the journey of life. Most likely, if that's true, February of 2026 through to the end of the year or early 2027. But changing your home, Mars loves to move. There's an eclipse coming. We'll do that in February. We'll dive more into that eclipse, okay? It is another type of energy when the South Node moves through the 10th house, right? You may have destined, fated shifts of your, what you would call it achievement, what you call success, what you call worldly success in the eyes of the world. Like you thought, I'm only successful if I'm rich and famous, or I'm only successful if, I get my golden retirement watch, or whatever things that you thought looked like accomplishment. And the South Node can help you let go and release those beliefs, because it's a deep spiritual energy in the 10th house. And so it opens you up to redefining those things that you think are important in the eyes of the world. And you might just spend more time at home. The North Node can really do that, because the North Node is still here. And then it goes here. You might spend more time at home because you've conceived a child. And that is a story that might unfold throughout 27 and off this eclipse. So over the next year. But when you think of change of home, change of job, change of career, if you think of all of those things, and this is such an important thing to know, it's also angular to your marriage house. So change of long-term relationship, home, career, and self. Those big four were under renovation, 1951 to 53, 1970 to 73, 1989 to 91, and 2008 to 2009. So you have to go back and compare notes. What was it like to live through Aquarius North Node changes in the home and the South Node in your 10th house? This is so funny. My Scorpio rising sun in 1991, and that eclipse cycle moved from New York City to Washington, D.C. Now, the kid was 2 years old, 2.5, whatever it was, but that's a big change of home for him, So there's an example. The same in 2008-9, he changed homes. So there's changes of homes with each of these individuals that you can count on each time you go through the sky. And if you want to be entrepreneurial, if any of you are listening, I think this could lead to that instinct because there's a bleed through on that first eclipse, maybe to start your own entrepreneurial business, but otherwise definitely changes in your home, maybe even a connection to the word homeland if you're far from home, and being major returns or changes in home and homeland may occur. Pluto sometimes means changing your country of origin, even. That's how intense this could be. And Mars says the exile. And it could even be in the year that follows this. So some of you are having a major change of home that could be international in scope. Okay. Hey, Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising. We have an eclipse cycle repeating every 18 years. North node moving through the sign here will be of Aquarius, and the south node through Leo in your 9th house. With the north node moving through the 3rd house, there's an amplification, an increase, and a volume up, if you want to call it that, in things you would consider 3rd house-ish. Skills-based learning, teaching, traveling, writing, communicating, marketing, selling, the social media online landscape, and increasing your attention to that. Now, just the idea of travel is important because the whole axis of change is travel. This is 9th house foreign land travel and pilgrimages and distant shores. And this is travel, this more domestic, learning this more domestic, gallivanting about in the local, caravans and traveling your own country or something like that. You can see the travel energy picking up here for you. Also, Sagittarius, anything to do with publishing, writing, book publishing, podcasting, online and social media worlds may take up a lot of attention. And certainly, as I said before, for the Leo folk, this is an educational axis as well. So you are not the Leo folk, sorry. The Gemini, no, well, I said it for somebody else before. The Geminis. This is going to activate the axis of education as well. And some of you might want to go back to school or start school or learn something new. All of those things can happen here as well. Siblings belong to the 3rd house, particularly the sibling one younger than you or the sibling 2 older, the 9th house, but also just siblings, cousins, uncles, neighbors, neighborhood, friends from childhood, and major destined shifts and changes with the North Node of fate in the lives of those people or in the lives of those people in relationship to you. And so fated changes happening in that regard. And Saturn is managing this eclipse cycle through this part of the sky. And he's going to be in your 5th house of children and romance. So if you're single, I could say perhaps you're going to enter into destined fated romances or conceptions or pregnancy stories through the local neighborhood, the bars and restaurants, online dating, pubs, and travel, and all of that. 3rd house places can bring new love to you that's fated and destined. It's got a little bit of a twin flame soulmate energy with that conjunction as well. If you're already with someone, not to fret. I'm not going to say that your relationship by any means is going to be impacted by this. It's really not about that. It's just for those of you looking for new romance. And you might feel, if you're anybody who's involved in projects that involve communicating or writing, especially, your communications can bring wealth. The North Node can bring worldly success. It's kind of ideal to start an entrepreneurial business or to get engaged in social media and online digital income and revenue. I'd say, especially with Mars here on that first eclipse, it could indicate the ability to create online digital income and revenue in your life. I don't know if I sent that to voicemail. Anyway, sorry about that. And go back and compare to 1951 to 1953, 1970 to 1973, 1989 to 1991, or 2008 to 2009 for those changes in travel, education, and sibling relationships, but also destined fated changes may occur here in neighborhood. Because of the North Node, especially at the onset, you may change your location of home to a new region of your country or a new city or a new zone in your neighborhood. That's likely to be one of the first things that could happen here. And it might occur from February this year coming all the way through to about a year later. That's one of the delineations I would add for that. Let me just make sure that wasn't one of my children. And then we move into the next sign. And after you Sages are having all this change here, and go back, please tell me what happened in this window of time for the themes I gave you. I always like to compare to people I know. So, for instance, 2008, 2009, a person I know, a Sag person, moved his home to a new neighborhood, very significant, from way up in like the back end of the city of Vancouver down to the beach. That was a huge change of neighborhood within the town. That's just an example, right? And if I go back to that person's life in 89, 90, I think I'm not sure. I don't remember. I don't know his life well enough. So you can make some comparisons in your own world about the kinds of changes you might experience on this axis. Now, we're going to dive a lot deeper for each separate eclipse into what could happen. So stay tuned for that. Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising sign. The sky is opening up a cycle of change. It's going to move through the axis of your money houses. It's going to take you through houses 2 and 8. Your money is the earnings, pocketbook, wallets, shelter, food, and water, survival stuff. And it goes also to your 8th house of chunky money. That's the inheritance money, the 401k plan, the investment strategies, the spousal support, alimony money, the inheritance money. Now, this kind of money has a South Node transit. Sometimes it means it's time to let it go. If you've been trying to live off some kind of investment structures or the trust fund or, the spousal support in a divorce or some shit like that. Although if you are the one paying alimony or spousal support, South Node could mean you're going to release that now. It's no longer needed anymore. You can let go of those payments. That would be an example. But you're also going to volume up, increase the North Node of worldly success in the house of earnings and the money that you can physically possess, right? And so we're going to talk about that eclipse because you could win some lottery money off of this one. That I'll be telling you when I do the eclipse in February, because there's a lot to be said about sudden money wins for you guys. And I'll explain why when we get to it. But at this point, it looks like there's a lot of energy I want you to know about over the next 1.5 to 2 years, right? In the way you make money and how much money you have. It should be an increase of money, voluming it up, more money coming to you in the second house with Rahu here, sometimes to the point where you might be chasing the money and getting exhausted. So you'll have to be careful. The very beginning of the story of this, energy of increased finances is also attending Mars and Pluto, which can bring wealth through difficult or challenging circumstances. I don't know what those are yet. Could be some money from a family of origin, a sibling, a legacy wealth story here as well, coming into family money. So money can come to you off of that, especially that first eclipse, in the means I'm suggesting from the house of siblings as well. Another thing I want to mention, though, as a general principle here, is dietary change, especially with Mars here on the February eclipse. So in the 6 months, it happens either facial surgeries or teeth fixing or dental, stuff, or maybe dietary changes. It looks to me, though, like if you've been worried about money issues, then this is going to increase your money story in a positive way, perhaps over the next, 18 months to 2 years. This eclipse cycle doesn't kind of wane until spring of 28. It's really thick in the middle of it in just 2027. And you might want to compare to the themes of these kinds of 8th house, second house monies that I've talked about, to go back to 1951 to 1953, 1970 to 1973, 1989 to 1991, and 2008 to 2009, to make some comparisons, to see how it was going with the money, the earnings, the resources, the dietary style. and the inheritances, the chunky money, the royalty money, the severance packages, the pay, the money that comes in a chunk. But it tends to be when the South Node moves through here, there's some money that you could have relied on that you no longer can. That is a letting go going on. There's a releasing it. It's weakening that bunch of money, you know. If you're interested in the occult mysteries or enlightenment, the South Node through the 8th house can get you involved in both the occult mysteries or enlightenment. And so there's a call to go deeper into your spiritual life, to dig under the surface of your egoic identity. And the eclipses will help do that. Yet that eclipse, the energy of the eclipse, it could help you go occult or get rid of the false self or the fictional identity, like destroy the ego or whatever. Those eclipses really get thickened up once we get the South Node here in July, and we have the eclipse in August as well. So there's that too. And in Vedic astrology, your family of origin, like mom and dad and siblings, can just be lumped categorically into the second house. And so there's an eclipsing perhaps of somebody from your family of origin, from your life. And with the non-Vedic tools, it looks a lot like sibling energy. So if you have a relationship with a sibling that hasn't been going well, you might have a falling out. If their health is not doing well, they might not be sticking around. You might not know that this is like, if that theme I've just gave you is true, it's more likely to play out between February of this year and February of 2027. Okay. And so I gave you dates to make comparisons, I believe. Yes, I did. So you can see what was going on mostly on your money, sometimes dietary habits or facial stuff as well. Face, the changes to your face, right? Hey, Aquarius, I'm one of you. Welcome to this overview of the new eclipse cycle that we're having coming into being this year as we begin to have eclipses through Aquarius and Leo for the first time since 2008 to 2009. And this is going to be all about us. I should have started with us because we are north noding, okay? That's an increase in our sense of self. Aquarius rising, especially with Pluto there for the first time ever in our lifetimes. You're going to say, okay, I'm increasing and transforming my sense of identity in ways that are life-changing. However, and digging into the surface of my identity to find out who I really or what I really am. However, the other energy for, like, say, an Aquarius sun would be massive transformations in the father relationship, the life of the father, or your career and purpose. And for Aquarian moons, of course, your mother or your home or your nest or how you feel and think about your life, major changes and profound transformations. Now, Pluto here with a north node can increase your sense of authentic power and wealth in the world. And over the course of the next couple of years, power and wealth will be inspected by eclipse cycles that want to generate a volume up around that. And you have to be cautious. Of course, the north node can get us chasing the perks in the matrix without deepening our spiritual connection. So watch out for that risk. This first eclipse has Mars and he's shearing through there. So I'm going to be doing a video on that about caution around injury to the body for the Aquarius rising, but also with the sun here ruling the 7th house of marriage, there can be an eclipsing of a long-term committed love relationship. Okay. And so just a possibility for any Aquarius in a long-term love relationship, there may be a closure of a relationship in the wake of the first eclipse in February, at a year. All said and done, though, South Node transits through the 7th house have two meanings. And this will be true July of this year through till 2027 end of year, that the South Node through your 7th house can bring you karmic, destined, fated relationships. Okay. Soulmates, destined partnerships, past life connections, the whole deal. So whether you're single or not, if you're with someone, you have to let go of the one you're with. Another person could come in. It could be one, the other, both, or neither. But there's a dropping of your attention as well, away from another person and into your own space. It's really kind of all about you as the North Node moves through your sign, and you're trying to define your idea of what being worldly and successful and stuff looks like. And with the South Node transit through the 7th house, If you're in a significant relationship, your partner may go through health challenges. Already happened already for the Pisces rising people, that their health partner, my sister's one, went through her marriage partner went through some significant challenges to his health during that cycle. So now you got your turn to have a significant other in your life going through a health challenge, and you might have to step in and support their journey through that process. Possibly, you could also look at this South Node transit through your 7th house as releasing or letting go, or pulling the plug on your audience, clients, and marketplace. The 10th house from the 10th house, the 7th is the public that you serve from your career. And with the South Node, you might go into a mode of diminishing, releasing, or letting go of some of that energy. And that's okay too. Every now and then we have to pare out our worldly offerings to decide what we're really going to focus on. Saturn is the ruler of the eclipses through the sign of you, and he's in the house of marketing, teaching, writing, and selling. And there's a possibility those new energies will be important to your sense of worldly success. I want to mention that Jupiter enters your 7th house in the summertime on June 30th. And that with Jupiter and South Node, you could have a very powerful, positive, destined, fated new relationship for singletons in the storyline. Just be aware of that. I doubt you'd see it before then. The South Node, by the way, still in your 8th house, is asking you to let go of certain chunks of money. You've been working on this because you've been volume up on making the money, right? But this is going to move here. And now it's all about that relationship sector in some way. The weirdest thing that can happen with this is money that belongs to a former spouse could come your way. I know that sounds really odd, but the South Node moves from the house, the gains of the spouse or the in-laws, into the marriage house, and it's the angles of the dangles with the rest of the sky that, there could be a revisioning of a spousal support agreement or something like that, or who knows. But that's a weird way it could also show up for you as well. Pisces, sun, moon, and rising. Oh, and did I go back for you guys? Did I give you comparisons? I'm sorry, Aquarius. I did intro you this, but if you go back to 1951 to 1953, 1970 to 1973, 1989 into 1991, and 2008 to 2009, you've gone through this before. Honestly, I think 1970 to 73, it probably was 1973, I was 11 years old. Bobby Kasner kissed me in the treehouse, my first kiss, right? Because it's the relationship axis, he planted a kiss on my lips and shocked me. He was going around kissing all the girls. It was crazy. So that was funny. So there was maybe the first kiss at 11 years old. And in 1989 to 1991, if I'm doing the self, I'm trying to see how this worked for me, the I-thou axis in relationship. Well, I was married, but I wasn't focused on my husband. So now for all of you married people who are panicking when I say South Node goes to your marriage house, and your spouse could be sick, or you won't pay any attention to your spouse, really. It's also just something as simple as you won't pay any attention to your spouse. Because at 89 to 91, I had a baby. Okay. I was so focused on taking care of a frigging baby. But I do remember my spouse, father of my baby, got sick from a trip to Africa with some illness. It was not good. I can't remember what it was. It was really dire. So I could say both the sickness bit and the hepatitis, maybe it wasn't so bad. It was one of the hepatitis A, I think. But anyway, long story short, yeah. So you can see that did work for me back then, 2008, 2009, just comparing to see, did this work for self? Yes, I met the guy 2008, and we actually got married in 2012 and started dating at the end of 2009. So it was the beginning of a karmic South Node destined relationship. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Sometimes it's just, if you're in a relationship, less focus on the other person, or they go through some health challenges. So I'm just giving you examples. Pisces, sun, moon, and rising, last but never least, best and always best. You are looking at finally getting rid of this. You've been dealing with your partner getting sick, or letting go of your attention to your relationship, or pulling back from your audience, marketplace, and clients as you focus on you. This placement has been here all of 25. It starts to fall apart a little bit and wane by July of this year. Now, The new story is going to be the eclipses that are moving through the very subtle 12th house, Metacosmios, and the 6th house as well. Heads up about the 12th house. If you're looking for enlightenment, North Node here might increase your interest in it, right? You might be focused on voluming up the idea of spiritual life, meditation, ashrams, but it can increase your solitude. You might want to and need to spend more time alone. As the North Node moves to the 12th solitude house, you might be more in a place of desiring and experiencing solitude. In what? In the cycle that's about to begin, that's going to last all the way through to 2028. So it starts up this year. The first eclipse in February is in Aquarius, ruled by Saturn. If you're going to spend time alone in solitary pursuits, it's in order to make money. Okay, in some way, you're focused on your earnings here as well. Really good for changing your dietary habits as well, Pisces, and getting rid of self-undoing and addictions and really gnarly food habits that don't work for you. Because the South Node will be moving, though, and you can make money online. This is a new digital income house. And when it's like complicated, but not, barter trade, far off foreign shores and land, money gained from distant people, money from living in another country. But on our digital landscape game board of life, we make money here from international revenue and people and places. And so you could definitely do that. You can make more money doing that kind of money making without any boundaries of borders in the way. With a steadfast, disciplined approach, thanks to Saturn, over the next 3 years, propelling you to more solitude in your earnings endeavors, perhaps, because working online is a solitary endeavor. And finally, I would say, the South Node is going to be moving through your 6th house, and your 6th house is a house of health. And the South Node is a house of decrease, the element of decrease of health. So this is a warning for you to pay attention to your health. Your cardiovascular system and your heart belong to Leo. Pay attention to those parts of your cardiovascular blood pressure stuff. That's where you're going to have to watch yourself. And I'm being proactive to tell you that. South Node through here is also karmic health challenges that are connected to past lives. Sometimes this could be an eclipse cycle that is going to go from summer of 25, 26 to the end of 2027 with the nodes there. And you just might go through a weird period of some strange health challenges that then resolve themselves when the South Node leaves your 6th house. A decrease in the house of pets, the loss of a pet passes away, that kind of thing. South Node through the 6th house, a decrease in debt. Not too bad. We don't want debt, so you can have more money and less debt. So there's a debt decrease signature. However, when this eclipse cycle starts, we don't really have the full nodal impact yet. It's not really here. Instead, we're still finishing up the last story. And it's possible that this eclipse in February will involve some difficult circumstances involving your spouse and their health. If you're married, okay. If you're not married, don't worry about it. I don't want to have you fret, but it could look like that. Maybe a health challenge that temporarily have to spend time in a hospital or something like that off the February eclipse. We'll cover the February eclipse in more depth. If you have employees, South Node will have you let go of your employees. You'll have to let some people off. You have to reduce your office staff or something like that. And you can let go of debt relationships. Karmic debt relationships can be surrendered and released. It's time for that thing to end. It has fulfilled its karmic purpose. Sometimes you'll know that that's what's happening. Sometimes you won't. Okay. And we'll talk more about this eclipse in my separate video just about the eclipse, because it's going to involve as well some very powerful energies with the asteroids. And I'm not going to talk about it yet. I'll save that for the dedicated video. Thanks, Pisces, for listening. Did I tell you to go back to 1951 to 53, 1970 to 73, 1989 to 1991, and 2008 to 2009? Did you go back and compare those? Because if you do, you're going to see comparisons to the themes I've just outlined for you on the 12th 6th house axis, right? So those are your best go back in time and compare. Those will be useful for you in some way, I hope. I'm trying to think of a few Pisces I know for a good example of that, like the 1989 to 91 version of that. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what was going on with my sister then. in terms of this axis. Well, she definitely had some health challenges. I won't go into them in her own life with that South Node transit through her sixth house. We can say South Node transit can bring health challenges that drain your vitality, for example. Okay. And the sun rules one of your eyes. The sun rules your right eye, left eye, right, left eye. The sun is the ruler of the left eye. So left eye issues as well. My sister did have some issues with her left eye back in 1989, 91. But all said and done, this too shall pass. It's a very karmic cycle, as best I can say for you. And it will involve job too, right? This is work and job. So if you're employed, South Node is also let go of that job or that way of being in job and service in the world. And watch out for the health issues as well. Definitely, this is a time to be a proactive Pisces as you move into this cycle. And with the South Node not quite here yet, the South Node enters here in like July. And then in the 18 months that follow, that's when I really want you to focus on proactive blood work regarding leonine things, right? Including the left eye. Okay, thanks for listening to that. My outro, I was going to say, I was on the pets for somebody, and I was like, I think I've done this before, but pets reincarnate. So here's my story, the reincarnation of animals. I had an animal. Her name was Delilah. She was a hound shepherd blend. She was only about 40 pounds, and she had this beautiful black eyeliner and this and a white bib and white paws and the coloring of a shepherd, the white, like, the white, the brown, the black, like a German shepherd. Anyway, she died when she was 16 years old. I mean, that's insane. I like literally held her in my arms as she passed away. And she went on a hunger strike, basically. And she was really tired of being around, walking slowly. And so anyway, I basically didn't want a dog after that, really. I mean, I got one for my daughter and that didn't work out. It did finally work out. But I mean, I was kind of done on pets for a while, 16 years, right? But about 3 years, 4 years later, not even, probably like 6 years later, I felt ready for an animal and I was looking for an animal. Wanted to get a Mastiff and I had a breeder, but there was a false pregnancy. And so it didn't work out. And then she didn't have another litter coming. So that whole thing fell apart on the Mastiff. And so instead I went to bed one night and I dreamt about these little black puppies underneath a table in a kitchen with a child gate, one of those child gates that stretch out. And I could see the kitchen counter and I could see where the puppies were. I could see the child gate in the dream. And I saw these black puppies. And I thought that was weird. I had been looking for the dog and the breeder thing had fallen apart. And then I woke up that day and on Facebook Marketplace, this is back like years ago, and that somehow I got a notification about animals. I haven't been looking on Facebook Marketplace for an animal. And the photo was the absolutely exact image of my dream. Like the child gate, the black puppies, the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a sign. So I called the woman and said, I'd love to take one of your puppies. Tell me more. And she said, she said, and I was leaving. I was getting ready to travel that day and I was going to be out of town for 5 days. So she said, if there's any dogs left on Friday, this might've been a Sunday. I was leaving to go Monday. She said, come by. I'll let you know if there's a dog still available. So I went away and I came back on the Friday and there was one puppy left and it was the runt of the litter. And don't forget, these are German Shepherds, right? And it was a breeding project between her homebred female shepherd and a show dog shepherd that was 100% black. These were all black dogs. Anyway, so I bring the dog home and we named the dog Leela, the play of God. And my old dog Delilah, her nickname was Lila. So Lila was pretty close. And I brought her home. And the night that I brought her home and she was in my room in her little kennel, I had a dream. And I dreamt that my old dog came and just bounced in front of me. That's Delilah, right? And she bounced across the field looking at me like, hi. And I'm like, oh my God. And I woke up and the next day I thought, is she telling me that she's this puppy? So here's the punchline. This is a completely jet black puppy, okay? The puppy fur falls out like 2 or 3 months into a puppy's life and they have a new set of hair, right? It's a normal thing. And her coloring's completely changed. She ended up with the black eyeliner, the Egyptian eyeliner that my other dog had, Delilah. She ended up with the white bib and the white paws. And she ended up with these little black dimples on her cheek that also my other dog had. So she had the exact same markings of my former hound slash shepherd mix who only made it to 44 or 45 pounds. This shepherd's siblings made it to like 80 pounds. She was the runt of the litter. She was a single dog in her own gestational sac anyway. Nobody wanted the smaller shepherd there was. And she only made it up to like 59 to 60 pounds. She was relatively small for a shepherd. But she was so beautiful. And long story short, like that was my dog come back. And I had her for 6 years, but she had a breed-specific tumor in a splenic tumor, and she passed away at 6 years into her life. But it was definitely, literally, my dog returned. And like, it's just uncanny how that stuff happens. And in so many ways, there were signs besides the markings of the dog. But I'm not going to go all into them now. But I think that, life is like that. And our dogs keep coming back over and over again and keep showing up again, as best they can in different forms. And Delilah and Leela are the same animal. And my dog has not reincarnated yet. Again, I'm not ready for a dog. I don't have space for a dog. But if she could, and she hasn't reincarnated, I'm sure she'll come back again and hang out with me. So that's my outro. Tell me in the comments, do you guys ever have dogs or cats or pets? I think mostly cats and dogs, mammalian species that it's the same animal that's come back to you. I'd love to hear from you if you have any stories like that. Those are always very heartwarming. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check everything about me, including my All Signs bundle, in the description box. And have a wonderful holiday season, everybody. Take care.